chapter 4, all about ethics today. So I encourage you to be a part of the conversation today. But we're going to start off with a little bit of current events. Guys, I thought this was crazy interesting. What you're looking at is called the Volodrone, and this is the world's first industrial delivery drone. This thing can carry up to 4,500 pounds. We're going to start off with a little video about some of the any reactions to this particular video. Yes? Really good point. The FAA is actually getting into regulating drone flights at this point. They have regulations that are kind of in process. This is a larger item than we've really been talking about for civilian use. Now, we see similar stuff in terms of size and payload for military or government, but we don't see a lot of this stuff in the civilian sector. So the FAA is definitely going to have to be involved. Any thoughts or questions about this, guys? What are the ramifications? Yes? It's battery powered, so you recharge it, and when it's done with its runtime, you plug it in, recharge it, and use it again. So it's a completely electric vehicle. It's not using gas. It's not using diesel. It's renewable. Yes?
Is there supposed to be like one human per like drone to like ensure that it like makes to its like destination with that?
I think that the plan is actually to have these things operating pretty much on their own. I mean, if you're a company, what would your goal be in purchasing these products? If you're a business-to-business company, why would you purchase these? What's the most expensive part of any company, guys? Exactly right. So we're talking about ship. If anybody's ever shipped anything by air, it's expensive, man. It costs a lot of money to ship stuff via air. So this is the idea of we can eliminate a very expensive part in our chain. Well, here's another thing too, guys. What's more congested, the highways or the air? Highways. Anybody here ever sit in a traffic jam? Yeah. Well, check this out, guys. If we're getting into the drone delivery part of things, I'll put some nice bacon smell over here for you guys because breakfast is on the way here. That's what I'm going to say every time I come to one side of the room. I'm delivering breakfast. It's amazing. Guys, the idea being not necessarily commercial flights, but at closer to the height of buildings, there's not a lot of air traffic right now. So if we have autonomous vehicles really taking over that airspace, we basically could have an entire market space that's controlled by autonomous vehicles. What's been the biggest challenge with making autonomous cars work? Is it the cars themselves, or is it a complicating issue? Exactly right. Because let's think about it. Autonomous cars are logical. They follow GPS. They follow programming. Are people always logical? No. Has anybody here, if you're willing to share, has anybody ever made a bad decision while behind the wheel of an automobile? I think if you've ever been in a car, you've probably at some point made a bad decision. If we have a completely autonomous system, the chances of errors and people being hurt are much lower. So what do you think, guys? Is this going to take off? Yes.
I'm actually a little bit confused what the benefits of that versus like making a civilian version of a military drone, because like we have fixed wing drones, and like it's kind of at a weird place between like the little civilian drones
Sure.
and like a regular helicopter. And like since we have full size drones already that are fixed wing, why couldn't you just take a regular helicopter, like say basically take a civilian Black Hawk, and just make that a cargo drone, basically?
Well, I think you could for larger payloads, for example. I think what the goal is here is to kind of bridge that gap. And the difference between this and a Black Hawk, for example, this doesn't require any kind of specialized fuel or any kind of facilities to maintain. We're talking about a pretty low maintenance item. I'm not going to claim I'm a mechanical expert, but I'm betting all of these electrical motors are pretty easily replaced, and the batteries are probably easily swapped out as well. So you're talking about building a system that would require less support in the long run as well. I agree with you. I mean, you could just retrofit existing vehicles. For example, has anybody seen any of the autonomous cars that are roaming around Pittsburgh? Yeah, you seen them?
I haven't seen one in Pittsburgh. I saw one in Montana.
What kind of car was it?
It was like one of the Google cars with the thing on top.
Yeah, and the reason Google is taking the approach to develop their own cars is so from the get-go, they're not going to have to retrofit things like brake pedals and steering wheels. And if you get, for example, other companies such as Uber and Lyft, they're experimenting with modifying existing technology. That's why if you see a self-driving car in Pittsburgh, it's usually a Volvo SUV. So this is basically a niche product that would position in between from the ground up. Pretty interesting. And here's the thing, guys. We start talking about industry. Everybody knows Amazon because Amazon's a business-to-consumer company. Everybody knows Ford Motor Company because they're primarily business-to-consumer. These are for business-to-business applications. So what's bigger, guys, in terms of market share? Business-to-consumer or business-to-business? Business-to-business is a much bigger market share, and that's what these guys are targeting. Any questions, guys? All right, well, let's get cracking on this, or I should say crackling. We're going to get crackling on this today. So many bad bacon jokes I can make. Guys, here's my question for you guys. Good morning. My question for you guys, did you have breakfast, by the way? All right, well, try not to let the smell of bacon get you too hungry in here today. It's one of those things. I had a couple of students trying to pull out parts of my head on the way down here because it smelled so good. It was very awkward for everyone. So, guys, in terms of responsibility, what do you think, guys, as companies in 2019, what responsibilities do we owe our employees and society as a whole? We know we want to make money. We know that we owe our shareholders. What responsibilities do we have to our employees? Yes? I agree. You should have a reasonable expectation you're going to come to work and feel safe and secure. What other responsibilities do we have? Yes?
Making sure they get paid.
Yeah, we're honoring the terms of our contract. What else do you guys think? What else do we owe our employees? What about healthcare? Do we owe them healthcare? What do you think? By show of hands, who here thinks that employers should provide healthcare to their employees? Who here thinks it's not the employer's responsibility? It's a free market system, guys. There's no law that says basically if you have a small business, you have to provide healthcare for your employees. Now, under the Affordable Care Act, if you've got 50 employees, you've got to give people the option of healthcare. Even if it's a bad plan, you have to give them the option. What responsibility do we have as companies to society as a whole? If we have a company, what responsibilities do we have to society as a whole, guys? What do you think? Then what do you think? What responsibility do companies have for the greater good of society? So we're not polluting the rivers, we're making sure our products are good for everybody, we're taking care of our employees, and we're taking care of external audiences as well. Here's the other thing, guys. Even if companies are not required to give paid days off, because in the United States, how many legal days off do companies have to give employees? Zero. Yes. Oh. And the only circumstance in which you can have required time off is if you have a family medical emergency. You're required to give 12 weeks off. Do you have to pay the employee for those? You do not. We have no required days off in this country. So it's a pretty big deal. That's why people shouldn't eat too much bacon, because they get cholesterol. They end up getting sick. They don't have health care. It can be awkward for everybody. So in terms of other things, guys, when people are ticked off, man, what do they do at work? We're talking about motivation. Mackenzie, if you hate your boss, what are you going to do when you go in? You're going to make mistakes because you don't care. Absolutely right. What else do disgruntled employees do? They quit. If they really hate it, the economy's good, they go somewhere else. How else can they damage your company while they're coming to work still? Yes?
Like ruining the reputation of it while they're still working for it.
Absolutely. Do you guys remember a couple years ago when Domino's put out those ads that basically say, wow, our pizza's terrible? Do you remember those ads? And the pictures of these pizzas that people were getting, obviously by people who did not care who were working there. So you can phone it in. There's a term called presenteeism. Does anybody know what that term means? Let me start off on the other side. What does absenteeism mean? Anybody, if you're absent from class, where are you? You are. You're not here. So absenteeism is the idea we got a problem because people aren't showing up. So what would presenteeism mean? If you're present, what does it mean? You're there. You're there, but you're not really there. Somebody just shows up and stares ahead. Like if I showed up in this class and I'm thinking, why in God's name is this man wearing a bacon costume when I'm paying for an entry-level business class? I sat here, kicked it, and checked out for the entire session. I'm here. I'm counted as present, but I'm really not here. Like if you ask me a question about something, guys.
How long do you cook bacon?
Huh? What? That's presenteeism. How long do I cook bacon? I cook bacon until it's nice and crispy, man. I like my bacon extra crispy. There's nothing worse than soggy bacon, man. You gotta have crispy bacon. You guys agree with me?
I agree.
Is there such a thing as a bad kind of bacon? I would argue there's one kind of bad bacon. That's turkey bacon. You know why? Who agrees with me that turkey bacon is a bad idea? Why is it a bad idea? You know what else it is? It's a damn lie. It's not bacon. It's turkey. So in this classroom, we talk about bacon. We're talking about pork bacon. I don't want to hear any talk about turkey bacon in my classroom. You talk about turkey bacon in my classroom, you might find yourself going out that door. No, actually, if you like turkey bacon, that's okay. But what we do, guys, when we have employees who are phoning it in, number one, you're blaming your mistakes on other people. You might be turning in false expense reports. Here was the old trick back in the day, too, guys. Check this out. Anybody here before the Uber days ever take a taxi cab? Couple of them. Here's the way it used to work for business travel. If I gave the cab driver a nice tip, you know what he would give me in exchange? Blank receipts. And cab receipts typically were that opening where you would write in pen what you had actually paid. If I were an unethical person, I could have written my own amounts in because I paid in cash for the cab. I could get reimbursed 2 or 3 times what I actually paid. Employees who are disgruntled will do that stuff all the time. Employees who are disgruntled have done terrible things. There was a video that went viral earlier last year of somebody, I believe at a Domino's, who was throwing pizza on the ground and serving it to customers. Somebody got fired from Panera. You know why? Because they actually showed that Panera uses frozen soup. They live streamed the idea they were cooking frozen soup that was not fresh. That's what disgruntled employees do. So they might also hoard resources, meaning if we're working on a team and I've got the things you need to do your job, I might keep them just because I want to be a jerk. Or I may actually go in and steal pens and do other things. It's not good to have employees who are disgruntled. So what is this costing companies a year? We're talking about $450 to $550 per employee per year is what it's costing American business. It's a problem. Think about this, guys. Now, if you go to McDonald's and you get a crappy hamburger, no big deal. Are there industries where if somebody's having a bad day, it could give you a bad day? What might be an industry where you don't want somebody to have a bad day, Shelby? For sure. If somebody's messing with your food, it's no good. Is there another industry where you don't want people to have a bad day? Yes. Engineering. Tell me more about that one. Wow, that didn't work out well for anybody. So somebody definitely was phoning in that job. Is there another general profession that might be bad? Yes.
Healthcare.
Tell me why that's such a big deal.
But you're dealing with the person's well-being and like if they're actually sick or not, or like everything about their health. So if you're giving them a bad day, it just gives them bad health.
Exactly right. So think about this, guys. If the person who's waiting on you in the ER is having a bad day and your arm is hanging off, I don't know if that's the person you want trying to reattach your arm. So people who are phoning it in, not only is it unethical, it can be flat out dangerous. How about the guys who made the Ford Pinto? Do you think at some point somebody noticed, wow, these things are probably going to blow up if they get rear-ended. Maybe we should fix this. Nah, it's quitting time. We're going home. There used to be an old cliche, guys, that you did not want to buy an American car that was made on a Monday or a Friday. Why? Yes. You got it. Because Monday people are hungover and Friday they're getting ready for the weekend. There are stories of people finding beer cans in between welds on American cars during the 1970s. The 1970s, by the way, this would be a great bonus question. In the 1970s, they called GM and Ford and Chrysler, they said they went through the malaise years. That's a big word. Has anybody ever heard the word malaise before? Malaise, what does it mean? It's a big word for blah. You know, and has anybody ever had the good fortune of driving an American car that was made in the 1970s at any point in time? There are a couple winners. There are a lot of crappy cars, man, because people did not care. My first car, this is another bonus question, was a get this, guys, and if you got your phone or your laptop, I encourage you to look up this car because it's a beauty. My first car was a 1977 Chevy Caprice Classic station wagon. It was bright orange and had a brown interior that was all vinyl. My friends called it Tunkin's Punkin. That was my first car. This car, every single thing on this car broke. I literally had to have I think it was a ice scraper wedged against the glove box to keep it closed. power stuff just died, so I had to crawl in through the back of the car. And occasionally in wintertime, you had to hold the carburetor open to get fuel and air to mix, and then it would occasionally shoot fire out of the carburetor. The people who made this car did not care at all. And there are lots of stories of that period in time. So guys, in terms of how we pay people, I have a question for you guys, though. We talk about what motivates people, for example. Is money a motivator to people? Will somebody justify their opinion on that? Please.
From somebody who's kind of spent time in the workforce, like I literally had a coworker look at me and say, "Paycheck's fine here," and like when the rubber meets the road, like it's not a great motivator, but like that is at the base level why people show up to work, because like you can't pay your bills, you can't own a home, you can't eat without that paycheck.
We're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if any of you guys have heard that stuff. So basic sustenance. Who else said money's a motivator? Will tell me why it's a motivator. Yes?
Well, even like, say you have two options for jobs, you'll probably choose the option that has a higher pay.
I would argue, yeah, at the beginning of your career for sure. But let's do a little comparison here. Let's say we're going to start on this corner of the room. We're going to make a pyramid out of this. This is the point of the pyramid. Right here, everybody is starting their career. So you guys are getting in your first jobs. Then we're getting into mid-career. And over here, we're getting to experience, folks. And back to Felix now. Felix is an executive. Who's more motivated by finances? Felix or the folks at the beginning of the pyramid? At the beginning, because they need the money. The higher you get up into executive pay, the less money is a motivator. Money is still a motivator, but let's think about this. If you got a guy, for example, like Tim Cook from Apple, is he going to jump ship for $1 million to another company? No. When you're making that much money, Mary Barra is making $22 million a year. $1 million isn't going to draw her away from a company she enjoys being at. So money is not always a motivator. That being said, there are other ways we motivate employees. I talked about this in my HR class, but I want to ask you guys this question. Let's say you manage the McDonald's. Gabby, you manage a McDonald's. You don't have big money for bonuses. What are ways you can motivate your employees? Time off would be good. What's something you guys have lots of at McDonald's? What does McDonald's do? Yeah, so giving somebody a free lunch who's making minimum wage is a pretty big deal, isn't it? So letting people even have something on the job, like that's a great idea. Companies like Costco give people, for example, a little bit higher wages, and they also give them more autonomy at work. Can somebody tell me a fast food chain that pays above industry averages? And what's their service like? You got it. Compare the service at Wendy's versus a Chick-fil-A. And Wendy's, somebody might have, put a handful of mayonnaise on your sandwich, and the person at Chick-fil-A is absolutely, coming out and refilling your drink. There's a big difference here, guys. According to Glassdoor.com, by the way, when you're looking for your first job, I encourage you to check this out. Glassdoor.com allows employees to rate their own companies and say, who likes working where? These are the top-rated companies on Glassdoor. It really surprised me that In-N-Out Burger made the top 10 for one of these years. But they actually beat Google in terms of quality of life. Facebook, however, is number one. Whether or not you like Facebook, they treat their employees well. They know their employees are their capital. And again, some nonprofit groups are on here as well. What satisfies you at work, what makes you happy is going to be different from one person to the next. Actually, before we move on, instead of having you ask me a question, I would like to ask you guys a question. What are the things you're going to be looking for in your employer? What's going to make you happy at work? Yes? Flexibility. Has some control over your schedule. Excellent. I want to hear from this row. What's something you guys are looking for in your first employer? What do you think?
Probably opportunities to move up in the company,
If somebody promotes you in the company, what message do they send?
that they trust you more and they think you're going to do a good job.
They're investing. I want to hear from this row today. Kira, what's something you're looking for in your first company? Your first job, what do you hope it looks like? Something that adds to our self-esteem. That's wonderful. Let's hear from this row. Chris, what are you looking for in your first company? stable, something you can count on, right? You know, not one of you guys so far has said money, and that's not a problem, guys, because here's the old adage. The worst boss I ever had gave me this advice. And you can get great advice from terrible people. You can even get okay advice from walking pieces of wood. What it comes down to is, if you're good at what you do, the money will eventually come to you. If you find success in what you love, the money will follow. I don't care if it's the idea of being a professional athlete. I don't care if it's the idea of being the best damn bookkeeper you can be. If you find success, you will find money. It's not to say all professions pay equally, but believe in yourself and you will find a way through. I think that the nonprofit angle to me is one of the things I hope you consider. Guys, if you have any interest in charity, for example, if you have interest in doing philanthropic work, there are great careers in nonprofit. I work in nonprofit. St. Francis University is what we refer to as a 501c3. Now, what's the advantage? If you're a company, what's the biggest advantage to being a nonprofit? Yes?
Either like less or no taxes.
Basically, if you're a well-run nonprofit, you pay no taxes at all because you're not supposed to make money. You're supposed to break even or even lose money. It's okay to lose money. The missions of nonprofits are different than the missions of for-profits. But the things that go into making a successful business are all the same. If you work for a university or if you work for Amazon, you still got to account for where the money's going. You still have to market your product. You still have to take care of your customer. You still have to do all these things. Now, generally speaking, if somebody works in a nonprofit world or works in a for-profit, who's likely to have a better chance to make big money? For-profit, definitely. Doesn't mean you like your job more. Plenty of people have a first career in the for-profit industry and end up getting into nonprofit. I'm just curious, by show of hands here, is anybody interested in careers in the nonprofit world? If you guys, what kind of career are you interested in?
I don't know, but would definitely be something.
You already have a strong interest in philanthropy too, so that's awesome. What kind of industry are you interested in?
I wouldn't mind getting into working with veterans.
What a great cause! And those are excellent examples of nonprofit. My wife and I have our own nonprofit. We started a nonprofit called Patch Together Incorporated. We raise funds for grieving children to give them services to support them in their time of need because we believe in that. And so you can have a for-profit and a non-profit career. Big things are happening. What I do encourage you to do, though, guys, we talked about this a little last time, is to look under the hood of where you're investing. It's okay to know what's going on with this company. It's also okay to look under the hood of for-profit companies to say, how are these folks using their money? Let's think about this for a second, guys. There are lots of people who investigate companies. People who are investing in companies. If you're buying stock, you want to know what that company is all about. If you're investing in Ford Motor Company and you find out they're dumping pollution into the Pacific Ocean, you may change your tune on whether or not you really want to invest with that company. Other research organizations will publish ratings of companies. What is their environmental rating? The Subaru truly has zero emissions factories. People who care about the environment are all about checking out companies. But so are union officials. Guys, who here in their own words can tell me what a union is? What's a union?
A group of employees who elect officers in order to sue the company for, like, not legally sue, but like meet with the company to sue for rights.
That's a great definition. So if you guys all decided you want to form a union, you would collectively bargain. You guys as a group would bargain with me, your employer. Well, union officials also want to make sure companies are telling the truth. Okay, General Motors, you can't pay our workers more money, but your CEO is making $22 million a year. We don't necessarily believe you. My statement is not an indictment or an endorsement of unions, but union officials are always interested in what the company is making. And then we get down to customers. Customers want to know what's under the hood. We had a lot of problems in past years, guys, with people doing dealings in foreign countries. But before I continue, because we're moving at a pretty good clip, and we are going to finish this chapter today, I would like to pause for a question or a comment from anyone in the room. Yes?
Did the GM strike that yet?
It did. They ratified the contract on Friday. I actually won a bet with my labor class because I picked a date that I was only 2 days off. So that's striking. Who else has a question or a comment? We need one more. We need one from this side of the room today. Yes?
Where'd you get your costumes from?
I got this amazing costume at one of those stand-up spirit stores. It's like every year, it's like whatever haunted or abandoned Toys R Us exists in the town becomes a Halloween store. You know, it'll probably turn into a Christmas store before it's all said and done. Is anybody here dressed up for Halloween? What are you dressing up as?
Bob Ross.
That is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Anybody else? Wow, not a lot of Halloween fans. I got to tell you, this is a hot costume too, man. It's like I feel like I'm sizzling in this thing. It's amazing. And it's the other thing about it too. It doesn't really breathe all that well. You would think meat products would breathe, but they don't. So, guys, in terms of what we've had issues in other countries, let's give you an example. If I'm operating in a place like India or parts of Africa, what might I have to do to get business done outside of the government? What might I have to do in a different culture that I might not do in this culture? Paying bribes, and it's called a corrupt practice, but it happens all the time. We're technically not supposed to deal in bribes with other countries. You're dealing with other countries. You're supposed to be able to do so above board, but we do it all the time. In the 70s, it was Nixon and Carter basically stratified what we refer to as the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and it meant what was a common practice was now illegal. We try to take care of this stuff through entities like the World Bank, but it doesn't always work out. Guys, we have a number of acts, I'm not going to read these to you, that basically say that we're trying to do fair trade. We're trying not to see kids in cobalt mines in Africa. We're trying not to see children be used to harvest cocoa in South America. But the toughest part is we can't be everywhere. For example, if I ask somebody to do something for me and they say, I'll take it home and do it at home, I don't have access to their house. How do I know how they're actually doing the job? If we can't monitor it, we can't confirm it. And it's really tough to enforce things like intellectual property across borders as well. Companies like Nike have really faced some scrutiny in the past years. I'd like to hear from this side of the room. Does anybody know why Nike has been such a controversial company when it comes to international law? And I wear Nikes too, so I'll put judgment on this company as well. Anybody have any guesses why Nike has gotten unfavorable press? Yes? Nike has been accused of using sweatshop labor. Now check this out. How many of you in here are soccer players? All right. St. Joseph's University, a few years ago, one of the coaches found out about Nike's, and we're talking about the early 2000s. This is not recent. This is not somebody you've probably read about. Found out about some of the practices Nike was using in their factories, and he went to his administration in St. Joe's and said, I refuse to wear a Nike logo or wear Nike products, even though they were a Nike team. And he was fired for it. He was fired for refusing to wear the logo. He went on his own and went to visit workers in places like Bangladesh. Well, actually, I think he was in Thailand to see how Nike workers actually lived. And what he did for a month is lived on the salary of a Nike worker in Thailand. How do you think that worked out for him health-wise? By the end of the month, he was sick and had to choose between food and medicine. He was starving. I think he had lost something like 25 pounds, and this was not a large man to begin with. And realizing that a lot of the people who are making the products we enjoy are, in fact, working for a much lower wage than we would accept in this country. Nike has faced a lot of criticism for this. I believe in a free market, and I believe, for example, you can pay wages that are appropriate for a given area, but you also have to be ready, if you're that same company, to be accountable for your actions. And with our world of transparency, where everybody's got a smartphone and everybody can report out on what you're talking about, I think it's really tough for a company like Nike to continue with these kinds of operations. Does that mean I'm going to quit wearing Nike? No, because I know that every other company, whether it's Adidas or whether it's Vans or you pick your shoe company, are probably engaging in similar practices. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask these guys to account for their actions and maybe raise the bar a little bit. So we're going to play a little game about ethics, guys. And I'm going to be asking you to tell me, what would you do? All right, who are my accounting majors in here? All right, this one's for the accounting majors. You guys are a junior accountant at Francis & Company, and you notice some irregularities on the ledger sheets. You report to your supervisor, and your supervisor says, don't worry about it. What do you do? Go for it.
Personally, I'm going to look more into it because I'm just going to be curious about what's actually going on, why there are irregularities.
Let's say you find that there are irregularities. Are you going to your boss, or what are you going to do? It's okay not to have a clue because you know what? It's a complicated situation. What's the risk to the employee doing the right thing in this scenario? Yeah, you get fired. This guy who's telling you to look the other way, you could get fired. Now, is there a danger in not reporting? What's the danger of not reporting? Whoever wants to answer.
I mean, if you know about it and don't say anything, and then somehow that's proven that you know about it, you could be like, I don't know, charged with defamation.
You could be charged with a crime. You could lose your CPA. So it's a risky situation. The risk is a young person, when you come into a company and you're asked to do something unethical or potentially unethical, you have to consider the consequences. I'm not saying any of this stuff is easy. In fact, this is one of the toughest scenarios because your supervisor may ultimately not be an ethical person. I would hope that you had somebody above this person to go to in the chain. There's no guarantee that you do. So we have now, you guys are a clerk in a business department, and you got expense reports from recent travel. Your guy, Bill. Bill likes his food, but he seems to be turning in receipts for 2 meals for every time he is eating. And he asks you to sign off on his expense report. What are you going to do? Yes.
Follow the company's procedure. Like if they say you can do that, let them do it. But if the company has a policy against it, you're going to not sign off on the report.
So what's your per diem rate? What are you allowed to be paid? What's probably happening here, guys? If you sign off for 2 meals every time, what's happening? He's got a date, or he's got a friend, or he's got a main squeeze out of town or something. He is definitely eating 2 meals. And so if you sign off on that, if you're breaking company policy to help this guy out, it could come back on you for sure. We got Carol. Now Carol has been sneaking out. She's been coming in late, and she's leaving about 5 to 10 minutes early almost every day of the week. And you're stuck with closeout duty almost every day. You also know her kid has a life-threatening illness, and she is leaving early for treatments. What do you do? Yes?
I would just talk to her about it, and if it is that, then I'd be fine with it.
I think you were completely within her rights, your rights to ask her to explain herself. Yes?
I think, provided that, I mean, we're assuming that she's leaving for treatments, that's when you let it slide, because I think that's a bigger ethical issue than whether it's ethical for the business. I think that's a case where the issue is bigger than the business.
You have every right, though, to ask her to account for her time if she's putting you in a position where you're working harder than her. This is one of the things I will tell you guys. You also find out when you get out into the working world that people who don't have kids often get punished for it. And I mean, the folks who get there leave early to pick up the kids from daycare and everything else. And when you're the person who does not have kids, sometimes you end up doing the extra work. All right. So you got a boss here that's asking for the report. He's been asking for it for days. Gentlemen, we got your boss here who's been demanding this report for days. You just got input from him, and you have not had a chance to edit this report. So you got a report that's not finished. Your boss is leaving for a flight in 10 minutes and wants a copy of this report, which you're not done with. So you got a report that's not complete. The information, you can't vouch for it. And he wants it with him when he leaves on this flight in 10 minutes. What do you do? What is your bet? You got to do something. So what's your option? Exactly right. So what do you tell him? This is what it is, boss. It's not correct. It's probably not all accurate. It's the best I can give you right now. What would be, for everybody, what would be the possible consequence if you just gave them a report and said, go with it? What could happen? Yes?
You're responsible for any inaccuracies?
Yeah, it comes back on you because the boss counted on you to have it correct. Sometimes you got to own up to your mistakes. All right, then we got this. You're studying for tests in all 4 of the classes you're taking. They're all hard. And a student in the hall has a copy of Tonkin's test and all the answers. What are you going to do? You're going to put it in the shredder, right? You're not going to get handed on to anybody else. Of course you're going to do the ethically right thing. All right, and we got this guy. He's your coworker, and he is a slug. He listed you as a reference for his new job. What do you do? That's true. But here for everybody, what are the risks to you personally? Because you hate working with this guy. So if you give them a good reference, you might get rid of him. But if you give him a good reference, the next company finds out he's a slug, who's it come back on? Comes back on you. This is a tough call. I've been in this situation. What do you also do if somebody says to you, hey, can I use you as a reference? And you really don't want to be the reference. How do you answer that? What do you think? Trevor, what do you say? I've had to say that to people before, that I cannot be a reference for you. Unfortunately, it was a student. It was a student who asked me if I would vouch for him, and I said I cannot because you have shown me that I can't trust you to honor your word. Your endorsement of somebody else is also a judgment on your character. Guys, social media is one thing in general. I encourage you that if you don't professionally like somebody, if you don't professionally respect them, do not accept their friend request on LinkedIn. You are judged by your network and the company you keep. Don't let this guy be your friend. Guys, that is our presentation for today. So we're going to do a brief review before I get myself out of the frying pan here and away from the fire because I'm getting hot. And I'm stirring my own juices up here, so we're not going to do that anymore. Guys, ethically and socially responsible behavior. Our first question is, what car exploded when you rear-ended it? The Ford Pinto. Look at this beautiful automobile. A fraud by paying. We're going to alternate sides of the room. So we had the first side of the room. This side of the room is next. A fraud by paying returns to existing investors from funds contributed by new investors. What do we call that? Is that a scam, a Ponzi scheme, a bait and switch scheme, or a shell game scheme? It is a Ponzi scheme. Other side of the room, true or false, emphasizing the prevention of unlawful behavior by increasing control and preventing wrongdoing is an integrity-based ethics code. That is false. What kind of code is that? It's a compliance-based code. Correct. Back to this side of the room. People who report illegal or unethical behavior are called, are they squeaky wheels, snitches, double agents, or whistleblowers? Whistleblowers, because snitches get stitches. We're going over to the other side of the room. True or false? Letting a coworker slack on the job is probably ethical so long as you're doing your job. That is false. That person should deserve to be held accountable. Back to this side of the room. The concern businesses have for the welfare of society is that corporate philanthropy, corporate social initiatives, corporate social responsibility, or corporate ethics. C is correct. It's corporate social responsibility. Back to the other side of the room. Which of the following is not one of Kennedy's basic rights of consumers? The right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to compete, the right to be heard. Say it real loud. The right, that is absolutely correct. It's a right that we have as capitalists, but not one of Kennedy's rights. All right. Back to this side of the room. What dollars were pulled from the market for eating children's hair? It's Cabbage Patch. And is it wrong that I kind of think that's a little funny that those things were eating kids? It's probably wrong. I probably should. There's something wrong with me that I laugh at that, but I do. Look at this thing. It's like the face of terror. Over here on this side of the room, trying to make products appear more environmentally friendly than they may actually be. We mentioned this one time. Is it environmentally unethical, environmental fraud, recycling, or greenwashing? It is D. It's greenwashing. Very good. We only mentioned it one time. That's our review, guys. Go out and have a wonderful day. Happy Halloween. I'll see you on Friday.